Hey folks, I am Jan Kinsey and I am here with Michael Pilarski. For a lot of you, he doesn't need any introduction, but he is the founder of the Fairy and Human Relations Congress. And he is doing a very interesting workshop at this year's Fairy Congress, which is July 18th through the 22nd. I'll put all the links in the description below. Um, Yeah, Skeeter. So the sun is going down where Skeeter is. He's at Scalitude, where the Fairy Congress used to be. And yeah, do you want to say something about blending and becoming and how you got this from Daphne Charters? And
Yes, so it's a pleasure to be with you, Jan. You're just one of our loyal Fairy Council members. And today I'm at Scalitude, where we held 18 of the Fairy and Human Relations Congresses. So there is a lot of fairy history sort of baked into this landscape now. And all the local fairies and mountain devas and beings, they've all interfaced with us, the ones that live here. And so, anyway, so it's nice to be here for this interview in this special place. But so a bit about Daphne Charters and how I got started with her. I'm going to have to go back a bit, but I'm going to try to make it quick. So in 1977, somebody gave me a book called A True Fairy Tale by Daphne Charters. Plain little book, no contact information whatsoever in it. Written, obviously, the foreword was written in 1956 by Sir uh, by a, a British military officer, by all people, George Air Marshal George Dowding, who was the head Air Marshal of uh, of England in World War II. So anyway, here's this famous general runs the Air Force at one point, telling of recommending Daphne's book on fairies. Amazing. Never see that in the United States. At any rate, it took me 2 years to locate Daphne. I was entranced by the book. I use that word deliberately. I was entranced by the book, captured by the fairies, and took me 2 years to find Daphne. She let me republish the book in the United States, and I became a pen pal friend of Daphne Charters, and we were close. Never met in person. Long, long letters, all hand paint written with a pen, and then she died at the age of, I think she was only 82 at the time, or 92. I think it was 82. But she passed on from this veil, and before she left, she said, "Skeeter, or Michael, she didn't call me Skeeter. She said, Michael, I have all these writings from the fairies besides the true fairy tale, and I feel they didn't have me do all this work for nothing. So I'd like to, it'd be great if it could get published. And would you take on the task of getting all my writings published?" And I said, "Well, of course, Daphne, I'd be honored to do so." It took me till, I think, 2006 to get volume number one out. Volume two is almost out. Uh, thank, thank fairies that Douglas Demers taken it on, because I just was not unable. I was unable to complete this due to so many other assignments that I get, and so I just kept waffling. But anyway, we're almost ready with Parima, the adventure. The great adventures of a house fairy. Harima the House Fairy. Anyway, fantastic book that's coming up. But out of all these writings that Daphne sent me, there were about five short little bits about blending and becoming. That's what she called it. She called it blending and becoming. And to go into a little history of that. So Daphne and her husband Jack were deeply in love. And they said when they were alive, when they got married, they said, "Let's not death do us part. We're not making that vow. We are going to continue our relationship, even if one of us dies before the other." And so we are going to try really hard to keep up to that vow. So, anyway, Jack did die in a blizzard in the Great Plains of Canada one day in a blizzard, and Daphne was tuning in frantically. Jack, where are you, Jack? Come in, Jack. I want to talk to you. We need to talk. Jack, where are you? And Jack finally said, "Oh, Daphne, I'm in a strange place. It's like a hospital and people are taking care of me. It feels really strange." She said, "You're dead, Jack. You're dead. You died." And he said, "Oh, that explains it." He said, "But anyway, they're taking care of me here." And they started this conversation and kept it up, and she became really good at talking to Jack, even though he was dead. And Jack had made friends in this new life, in this new plane, because we all go somewhere after we die. And there's a lot of speculation. But Jack said, "Oh, I'm in a place that's quite a bit like Earth. I have friends here. I ride around on my motorcycle and blah, blah, blah." And at any rate, Jack introduces Daphne to his friends. His dead friends are all dead. They're in this other plane of the earth. And so she got good at talking to them. Daphne later on went on to become good at talking to the fairies. And she introduced fairies to these dead humans, and they started hanging out together and they started meditating together and going on journeys. So when the fairies meditate with a dead person, they both astral travel in a sense and go into other realms, lower, higher realms. This is kind of like on Earth here, the shamans. They journey to higher realms, and they can also journey to lower realms in terms of vibratory quality. And so, at one point, the human and the fairies combined with a color being, they all merged themselves. They did a merging, a blending of their individual beings into a new composite being called, in their case, Harodino. And so this was described in 5 small essays. And anyway, we actually made a little booklet out of it called Blending and Becoming. Um, uh, and so somewhere I've got that. I actually don't have my hands on it right at the time. I should try to see if I can find it before the event, though. I better do that. Okay. So, any rate, because I learned about this blending and becoming and how they did it, human, fairy, and color beings. And there's also a mind being, beings that work with mind. So, anyway, it's 4 different evolutions of beings combined into one composite being, which integrates everybody's talents into one talent. It's like a human team. You form a team here on Earth, and they go into a project, and everybody brings their talents to the team, and they work together. And they work close. You can work closely together. In this case, they are so working so close together that they form a composite being. And so I've been practicing doing that now for oh, uh, for at least I would guess 15 years or something, maybe even a little bit longer, that I've been doing this with my team. And my team has grown over the years because of the Fairy Congress. At one Fairy Congress, I'm with Kim Wilkinson, and she's giving a workshop on dragons. And she says, "Oh, okay, everybody, let's go and meet a dragon friend." And so, poof, we all went off. And so, anyway, we didn't actually go off. The dragons came to us at the Fairy Congress, and this one dragon showed up, uh, amazing being. And as a result of that meeting, he joined my team. I think of it as a he dragon. Um, and so now I have a dragon on my team that I blend and become with. So over the years, my team has grown, and the composite being has taken on new attributes. And so we have nature, spirit, part of the being. We have she beings, myself, uh, this dragon being, um, and there's we have a color being that works with us as well. Well, anyway, so there's our composite being that we form, and then we go off and do adventures as this being, which is quite talented and quite spiritually advanced, because he's taking the best of the higher selves of all of these 5 evolutions now, and combining and we're combined being. And so I'm going to talk about that at the Fairy Congress, and we're going to, other people are going to start practicing as well. So it's a new evolution of life on Earth for composite beings to form. And I didn't know, you said that you haven't run across this before in shaman language. I figured this was common in
No,
some
this, I
cultures,
mean, this
but it
this is
appears
so,
that we're doing something different. And I know that
yeah.
when I communicate with stellar beings, I or solar the solar logos of our solar system with beings like from outside of Earth, I say, hey, look, and I'm in the composite. I say, look, we're a composite being from Earth now, and we're kind of new, and we are here uh, to work with your realms. And so anyway, it's a new development, it appears. And so it looks like we're breaking new ground, or at least it feels like we're breaking new ground. And so anyway, that's a long story there, Jan. What anything what else would you ask now?
Well, it's such a fast. This is such like folk, fairy folk magic in a, like a different twist because a lot of people have, we end up working with a lot of spirit helpers who, some of them are working with healing, some of them are working with animal healing, some of them are working with medicinal herbal plants, some of them are dealing with, finding soul parts or working with unraveling sorcery or something. And to put, so I've got I've got actually an organizational chart. I ended up having to make one, all these spirits that are helping me with like bringing back soul parts from the church, but to composite them into one being is fascinating. It's just a fascinating idea. So, can you say something about the new book coming out and how people can get that? Because that hasn't really been. I mean, get on the newsletter list for Fairy Congress will be is but if you could just say something about the new Daphne
The
Charters.
Parima book. Well, the Parima book, when I first read it, when I first got it from Daphne, because I got all her writings over about maybe a 6 month period after she died, as her friends in England had to transcribe um, her handwriting. This is all in handwriting. They had to get it typed into, and they, as they got it typed up and sent to me, it's a big body of work. I would get sections of it at a time, and I would read avidly every single word of every single text they sent me. Um, and I just kept, and so when I got to the Parima book, when they sent me that, I started reading that and I was like, holy Toledo, I am blown away. This is not like the rest of Daphne's work. It's mostly about fairies having a good time and taking care of the plants, and humans and fairies working together for the good of the life on Earth. And sometimes they would go to journeys together into what they called the lower planes of being, not necessarily the lower worlds of the shaman, but these are worlds that are what we would call the realms of hell. It's like there's a lot of people. Any rate, it's pretty. It's the realms of hell are not pretty. Where we've heard reports of them from various churches and things, and of course, there's a lot of debate on whether it actually exists. But according to Daphne's fairy works, yes, there are lower planes of beings with not nice characters and beings, life waves down there. And so sometimes Daphne and her fairies, or even with humans, Daphne being a human, they would go and rescue fairies or humans that were stuck in the lower realms. I've run into that quite a bit. And also and any rate, so um this book is about Parima going and helping her really close friend, like a partner, male fairy, Parima being female. They have male, female counterparts in the fairy realm. And he had lost parts of his soul, parts of his being have been lost in the lower realms, and they had to go rescue them. So this is a soul retrieval written way back a long time ago, way before it became popular in today's world. So this is a soul retrieval for a fairy being, and they had to go into these lower realms of hell, so to speak, and find find his lost bits and get them back, rescue them, and so it's a whole book. I mean, it's chapters after chapters after chapters of their adventures of what they had to go through to do this, and it was just uh, it's like a Tales of Narnia or Tolkien or something like that. I mean, you're dealing with unsavory characters, and you're dealing with other life waves, and your the good guys, so to speak, the light realm. And it's interesting because they had a human friend that went with them. So this is actually two fairy beings and a human who's one of Perima's friends. See, fairies can have human friends. It isn't just fairy congress people that do that. So anyway, and well, anyway, so there's a huge download of information. And this is just one of the stories. Actually, takes up a big part of the volume, but it actually goes into several other of her lifetimes on Earth as well. So anyway, so you get the perspective of life of a house fairy and one that goes off on these incredible adventures into the lower realms. Um, anyway, so that's a bit about the book. And so it's kind of a shocker. It's not for everybody. Um, the other stuff is kind of like, oh, it's just all cutesy fairy stuff. No, there's nothing that would, you might say, raise an eyebrow. I see you doing that. So, but anyway, anyway, so it's exciting to get this book out. There'll be the third volume, and that will have the blending and becoming stuff in it, which hasn't been published yet.
Wow, this is so rich and so fascinating. It's really fascinating. So Daphne Charter she started the first Fairy and Human Relations Congress on what she called the astral plane,
Yeah,
and
and
you took
well, it was in the fairy realm,
it was in the fairy realm.
which is maybe a part of the astral realm. I'm not 100% sure how to gauge that. But at any rate, the fairy realm is in a dimension very close to the physical realm. We don't see the fairies running around. They're in a slightly different vibratory setting, a slightly different frequency, but they relate to the physical realm. I mean, even though they're in this realm that's just, just you might say slightly different than the physical realm, they actually are working with the plants on the physical realm. They work on the physical earth, but they also live part of in this other realm as well, interfacing into the physical realm. But at any rate, yes, they did have a fairy congress, probably about 1956 in England, and that's where I got the idea for the Fairy and Human Relations Congress on the physical realm. And they called their event the Fairy and Human Relations Congress. So I got the title from Daphne and her fairies, and they have stuck with it. And we've learned a lot from how the fairies did their event, and now we do you might call it a composite event. So when our fairy and human relation is happening on the physical realm, and we're dancing around the meadow, and we're having workshops, and we're eating meals, the fairies in their realm, in that slightly different realm, are nearby, and they're having a big convocation with big devas and high mucky mucks in the fairy realm, and then thousands upon thousands of normal fairy beings. In other words, many levels of fairies attend the fairy congress on their side of the veil, and we are on our side of the veil, but we deliberately merge our events during our rituals and our parade. And so that's why we have, during the ritual and parade, people with cameras that capture orbs will see massive amounts of orbs floating in the pictures, because the fairies at that time were intermingling in a very deliberate way. Not every human knows this or experiences that way, but it's obvious that's what's going on. I mean, we get reports from their side. I mean, we have um, fairy seers among us and listeners and clairaudience and clairvoyance. And so they see these things going on and we capture it on the orbs on our films. Anyway, quite fascinating.
Skeeter, that was fascinating. You just gave us like this very coherent, vivid snapshot of how the Fairy Congress came about and what's really going on. It's not just a fun show. There's a
It's not
lot
just
going on.
a bunch of crazy people dressed up in costumes having a giggly time. We're actually working at solar, stellar,
Yeah,
lunar, earth-wide levels with beings of the fairy realm to aid the earth. We are like the trilogy, the Fellowship of the Ring, that is working for the good causes of the earth. We are the Fellowship of the Ring at the Fairy Congress, or one of them. I'd like to think we're not alone, that we're just one of these joint fairy human endeavors for the good of the earth.
fantastic, Skeeter. Thank you so much. So Fairy and Human Relations Congress is July 18th through the 22nd. I'm going to put all the links below. Get on our mailing list. We have a lot of online workshops, online seminars, and then we have the Fairy Congress, which is like a 5 day, 4 day, 5 day gathering in third weekend of July, kind of an hour south of Portland, Oregon. Skeeter, I look forward to seeing you there. It's always good to see you. It's always good to talk to you. You're just like such a wealth of wisdom.
Oh, well, I study hard and the fairies talk to me. And
Yeah,
I'm excited to be there again. This will be like our 24th Congress, and I've been at
yes,
every
and we've
one,
been doing this for
Jan,
like,
and you've been at every one since you started. So anyway, some of us we're just really
yeah,
regulars. And
I just completely fell in love with Fair Congress. I was like,
yeah,
wow, this is
well, we're in love with you too. And
ah,
we'll look forward to seeing you there and whoever else makes it. Maybe somebody will watch this and decide that, oh, I guess we'll have to go. The fairy just whispered in my ear, oh, go to the Fairy Congress.
listen to those whispers. Yeah. All right, Skeeter, enjoy the rest of your evening. Ta-ta,
Okay.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.